He thought it was just another day, another shift, another quiet moment in a world that rarely noticed him. A janitor, overlooked, underestimated, invisible to the people who passed him by. But when a black belt locked eyes on him and said, "Let's spar, just for fun," the room shifted. Laughter echoed, whispers spread, and everyone expected the same outcome. One man humiliated, one man glorified. But what unfolded next would leave that room silent, breathless, and forever changed. So the question is, who really had the power? All along? Marcus was used to being unseen. He swept hallways no one remembered walking through, emptied trash cans that filled again by morning, and mopped floors that gleamed only until the next pair of muddy shoes crossed them. It wasn't glamorous, but it was honest work, and it paid enough to keep food on the table for his family. Most nights, after his shift, he'd stay behind in the community gym he helped clean. It was quiet then, almost peaceful. He'd wipe down benches, sweep corners, and watch athletes roll up mats or finish their last sets. The fighters who trained there barely looked at him. To them, he was just the janitor. But Marcus carried something none of them knew. His body remembered. The rhythm of gloves striking bags, the discipline of long-forgotten training sessions from years past. He never spoke of it, never showed it. That part of his life was buried under years of work boots and cleaning supplies. Then came that night. A seasoned black belt, confident and loud, spotted him leaning against a wall. The man laughed, tossed a smirk, and said words Marcus had heard before but never answered. "Come on, just for fun." The room stirred. Some chuckled, others waited. To them, it was a joke. But behind Marcus's calm eyes, something flickered. This wouldn't just be fun. This was about to become something far greater. The challenge hung in the air like a dare no one expected Marcus to accept. A black belt, respected, feared, admired, standing tall and smirking at the janitor who still held a broom in his hand. Around them, whispers filled the gym. "This should be quick." "He'll get flattened." Laughter simmered, feeding off an unspoken assumption. Marcus didn't belong in that ring. Marcus set the broom aside. He didn't rush, didn't argue. But the moment he stepped forward, the mood shifted. Some saw curiosity in his eyes. Others thought it was foolishness. To them, he was the underdog, an untrained janitor about to be humiliated for everyone's amusement. And beneath it all, there was something sharper, uglier, the quiet expectation that a black man in work clothes couldn't possibly measure up to someone who wore the title of black belt. The black belt tightened his gloves, grinning as though this were a warm-up. "Light sparring," he called out, his voice mocking. The others chuckled, already anticipating the spectacle. To them, it wasn't a match. It was entertainment. A way to put Marcus back in his place. The first few moments were a blur. The black belt came forward fast. Throwing light jabs meant more to toy than to strike. Marcus stepped back, calm, measured. He didn't flinch. He didn't stumble. And that unsettled the room. Whispers hushed into silence. Then the taunts began. "Come on, swing back." "Show us something, janitor." The words cut sharper than any punch. They weren't just doubting his skill. They were stripping away his dignity, turning the spar into a stage for ridicule. Every smirk, every laugh carried the weight of a society that too often dismissed men like Marcus as nothing more than their uniforms. But Marcus had heard it all before. Years of quiet discrimination, of being overlooked, underestimated, spoken down to. This moment wasn't new. It was simply louder, more public. And with each jeer, the tension inside him coiled, tighter. He moved differently now. His steps were deliberate, balanced, almost graceful. The black belt noticed and frowned. He threw a harder punch this time, one that would have rattled any novice. Marcus slipped it effortlessly, Gasps erupted from the sidelines. The janitor wasn't stumbling. He was calculating. The crowd leaned in, realization dawning too late. This wasn't the mismatch they expected. Something else was happening. Marcus feinted, shifted, then countered with precision. Nothing reckless, nothing showy, just enough to make the black belt's head snap back. The laughter stopped. The room fell into stunned silence. And in that, silence. Marcus felt the weight of every mocking word, every dismissive glance he'd ever endured. He wasn't just sparring anymore. He was standing against a lifetime of being invisible. But the fight wasn't over. The black belt's pride was wounded, and that made him dangerous. He clenched his fists, his smile gone. The air grew heavier. What had started as a friendly spar was about to turn into something far more brutal, and Marcus knew. This was the moment that would define everything. The black belt's pride burned hotter than the sweat dripping down his face. He wasn't smiling anymore. His punches grew heavier, sharper, no longer playful jabs, but calculated strikes meant to break more than just Marcus's stance. The gym echoed with the thud of fists against pads, the shuffle of feet on canvas, the rising breath of anticipation. Marcus moved with precision, slipping, blocking, countering, but every time he landed a clean shot, the room reacted as if something impossible had just happened. And that's when the ugliness spilled out. Someone from the crowd shouted, "Know your place, janitor!" The words cut through the air like a blade. Others laughed nervously, feeding the tension, masking their discomfort with cruelty. This wasn't a spar anymore. It was a test, a public trial of his worth, his dignity, his right to stand as an equal. The black belt lunged with a powerful kick, aiming for dominance, but Marcus met it head-on, catching the leg and pivoting with a technique so sharp the black belt stumbled. The crowd gasped. For a moment, he looked vulnerable, human. Marcus pressed forward, not out of rage, but out of something deeper, defiance. Every strike was measured, every movement a declaration that he would not be invisible, not today. The black belt swung again, desperate, furious, but Marcus slipped inside the strike and delivered a blow that landed with the sound of finality. The room froze. Silence crushed the laughter, swallowed the whispers. The janitor had not only survived, he had stood tall against the one man no one thought he could. But Marcus didn't celebrate. He didn't gloat. He simply stood there, chest heaving, staring down a world that had expected his humiliation. And in that silence came the unspoken question: when the truth stares us in the face, will we finally see it, or look away once more? The match ended, not with cheers, but with silence. The black belt, once untouchable, now stood humbled. And Marcus, the janitor they had laughed at, remained steady, unbroken. He hadn't just defended himself in the ring. He had shattered an illusion, exposing the fragility of arrogance built on status and skin. Yet, as powerful as that moment was, Marcus knew the fight didn't end there. Because outside that gym, the world still carried the same whispers, the same smirks, the same quick judgments. One victory in front of a crowd did not erase the countless times he had been overlooked, underestimated, or dismissed because of who he was and what he looked like. But for everyone in that room, something shifted. They had witnessed more than a sparring match. They had seen the truth. That worth is not defined by titles, uniforms, or the labels society tries to stamp on us. That strength can come from the places we least expect. And that racism in all its forms, loud or quiet, obvious or subtle, does not stand undefeated. When courage answers back. Marcus walked away with no medals, no trophies. But he carried something greater: dignity reclaimed, respect earned, and a story that spoke louder than the silence that followed. And maybe that's the lesson for all of us. How many more times will people have to prove their humanity before We finally recognize it? How many more voices need to rise before we stop pretending not to hear them? The truth is simple. The world changes not when injustice is ignored, but when it is faced head-on, by the invisible, the underestimated, the unheard. So the question remains, will we keep looking away, or will we finally see?